It is so nice to have you here. We've been talking about this, and I know we grab you on big days, but to have time to have this conversation is really important and special to us, so thank you.
I'm glad to be here. It's like you said, it's a long time coming, but I'm glad to be here to have some important conversations with you.
Tell me about last night first. Tell me about the award.
Wow. Yesterday, the Common Good had an award ceremony. It was a little backed up because of COVID and the restrictions that they had. So there was 2 years combined in one. And we were celebrated and honored with some fine Americans. Skip Gates, Judge Ludenberg.
Fred Guttenberg was there,
Fred
right?
Guttenberg.
Yeah.
Just amazing Americans. And we were just honored just to be in the room. You know, I've always said from the jump that the people that day were heroes on January 6th. And although my face and the names of Michael Fanone, myself, Carolyn Edwards, Sergeant Gunnell, Danny Hodges have become synonymous with the January 6th insurrection, the attack, there's so many names of officers who fought that day, names that you'll never know, whose faces that you'll walk down the street. You could be walking next to an American hero and you wouldn't even know it. So I was happy to accept that award and dedicate it to those officers, my co-workers who fought so bravely and valiantly that day. But it was just an amazing opportunity by the Common Good Foundation. It's just a great honor to be there.
You're always very specific and deliberate to never speak for them, but because you've honored them, let me just ask you a question about law enforcement in general. What is the disconnect for people who have to protect an institution, a building, say, and the men and women who work inside of it who deny the threat?
See, that's where the challenge, well, you know, not even the challenge, that's where the human element comes into. We're all humans, so you like to look at people see law enforcement as, you know, robots or just go do your job, and we'll get into it later, talking about the mental health part of it, but we're human beings. We have feelings, we have emotions. And that's one of the things about the whole January 6th. I still go to work and I do my job every single day since January 6th and before. But I'm still a victim, just like so many of our coworkers are. And victims deserve justice and accountability. And that's why I haven't shut up 863 days later. And I think it's important to still continue to push for that. Or, like I said, what's to stop it from happening again?
Do you feel like there's still a threat that it could happen again?
Yeah, like the dude said, the former president, whatever.
That's about the nicest thing we could call him, right?
The former president is literally going to pardon the people. Like, what is a pardon? Hey, you guys, don't worry about it. It's okay. I forgive you. So what's going to stop that if he is elected to pardon the people? Like, oh, you know what? They were wrong to prosecute us. Is that what their thought process is going to be? They were wrong to prosecute us. They were wrong. We were right. So let's do it again. I don't know if that's their thought process, but how could that not come to mind when you hear him say something like he's going to pardon the individuals responsible?
I remember when Trump first said that he was going to do this, pardon the rioters, and I said, not on TV, I said to my team, I said, this is going to become a litmus test in the Republican primary, that you're going to have to be for pardoning the insurrectionists to get through Republican primary. So the damage I see politically is that he's now infected one of the country's two parties to actually be for what you just said, for erasing the meticulous, tedious, fact-based work of charging and prosecuting and having a jury render a judgment for insurrectionists by saying, I'll wipe it all away. What damage does that do?
But the bigger question, why is it hard why does that become a test?
Right, why is that a good thing?
Why is it a test? Why is it a test to say the people that were responsible need to be held accountable? And I believe Nikki Haley said something today, the people, if they broke the law, they need to be held accountable. It's literally just as simple as that. If you broke the law, you need to be held accountable, not be pardoned for it. Why is it a test? Why is it hard? Why is that a campaign issue or not? Why is that a problem? It doesn't make any sense to me. It should be as simple as if you were wrong, you answer to it and you're held accountable, and that should be the end of it.
What is the sort of private conversation among anyone that was at the Capitol that day about why the individuals who we saw on our TV screens have been investigated and prosecuted and sentenced, but the people who invited them there that day, who planned the day, who wanted to join them that day, haven't.
Well, one thing we said about the private conversations, a lot of people, we don't really talk about it that much. I do. Probably people are tired of it. I don't care. But some people just, that's how they cope. They just out of sight, out of mind, and they don't acknowledge, they don't want to pay any attention to it. It's over, let's just get back to work. And that's fine, that may work for some people, that doesn't work for me. But I just keep on going back to, why is this hard? Why is this, we literally saw what happened that day, and you're gonna tell us that what we saw, like Michael Fanone said, I've been to hell and back only for people to tell me that hell doesn't exist. He was there in the middle of it, and everybody, the entire world, not just the country, the entire world watched that footage. And I am so flabbergasted with how people don't acknowledge what we went through that day. And it's still a looming threat over this country.
And do you view the promise to pardon those people who, the wheels of justice have been grinding very slowly and very meticulously for the people who have been held accountable? Some of the people on that screen, I'm sure, are in jail or awaiting trial. When one of the two parties' leaders, Donald Trump, says he's going to pardon all of them, to me, it feels like what's ahead could be even worse than what's behind. Well,
I think that's one major reason why we need to make sure he doesn't get elected, so he doesn't have the ability to pardon anybody like that. It's kind of like, we're setting them up to, like I said, do it again. We need to make sure as a country that we prioritize what's important, and storming the Capitol should be, and trying to overthrow democracy should be at the top of that list.
I'm not asking you this to try to re-traumatize you in any way, but I think some of the ways that people compartmentalize this as politics is that they don't have to see their faces. They don't remember Trump supporters in their face doing them harm and saying horrible things. Do you remember? Do you think about being face-to-face with his supporters that day?
People say yesterday, a lot of people asked, are you, still traumatized? Do you have flashbacks? It's hard to have a flashback of something when it hasn't ended and it's still like a nonstop playing scene in your head. Like, maybe I'm obsessed with it, maybe, I don't know, but that's not a flashback moment. It's every day it's in my mind, I'm seeing what happened that day. Just walking down the hallway with some of my coworkers, there'll be a spot in the Capitol they remember something happened that day. Not even just the police officers, the staff, the janitor, the custodians, everybody who worked in the tour guides. They just have a memory of something that happened that day. And so it's hard to say, no, it's not like a flashback, a triggering moment. This is my life now, And how can it end until, like I said, accountability has been had? So,
and that's trauma, right? It's a moment gets frozen in time, and then time isn't what it is for anyone who isn't traumatized.
863 days. It's a long time. Waiting. Tired of waiting.
What would accountability look like?
I try to be, educated and instead of emotional responding to this question. But whatever the measures that are there to make sure that this never happens again, that's what accountability looks like to me. What can we do to guarantee that this person, maybe not anybody in the future, I guess that's some part of accountability to deter people, but to make sure the individual responsible never does it again. And that goes back to making sure that he doesn't have the power to pardon anybody, and all the other people that were involved in it. So,
your voice is so singular in that you are both a protector of the building and the men and women that worked in it, and confident enough to share your vulnerability. I mean, it makes the hair on my arms stand up to hear you do something that most people who've been traumatized can't ever do, let alone on TV, talk about that trauma. And I wonder where that comes from. How do you do that?
I own my truth, and I don't conflate my story or what the things that I've been through with anybody else. How I'm feeling is how I'm feeling. I don't expect anybody to have been through what I've been through. And just like every victim has a story, and people should be empowered to tell their story. I encourage anybody and everybody who's been a victim of something, especially on January 6th, to face that and share your story. I mean, nobody can take that from you. That's yours. And I feel like that's where my strength is. My story is what I went through. I don't try to say that everybody at the Capitol Police or members of staff, anybody in the Capitol building that day went through what I went through. It's what I went through. And that's how I can stand steadfast in my truth, because this is what I went through.